Hey everyone, and welcome to another Adventures Out video. I'm currently driving at the minute. I'm just on my way up to my caravan to check on a few things before, after the storm, or the storm we're currently having. And yeah, I want to introduce today's video because I filmed it last weekend and I made some pretty stupid mistakes with regards to audio, microphones and things like that. I was wearing a lapel microphone. The receiver was plugged into my camera, my main camera, and it didn't work. So the only microphone that was working was my GoPro microphone that I had left running in the background, but it wasn't anywhere near me, so the audio for most of it, certainly for my face to camera stuff, is pretty poor. I'll play a bit of it now so you get what I'm talking about, and yeah, it's pretty horrible. Hey everyone, and welcome to another Adventures Out video. It's late September, I'm back in my garden and I'm here doing another science experiment. So yeah, so I just want to come in and essentially reiterate what I said on that bit to camera that you couldn't really hear. So this video is another science experiment, but it's a repeat of the waxing your paddles science experiment I did a couple of weeks ago, because somebody pointed out in a comment that paraffin-based waxes, including candle wax and the surf wax that I used, which I think is paraffin-based, are harmful to the marine environment, or can be harmful to marine environments in large quantities. And whilst one person using them on a paddle is probably negligible, if everybody started doing it, it might be a problem. So as a YouTuber, although I don't have a huge audience, I want to be conscientious of that. So I started looking into whether there was any eco-friendly alternatives, and I think I've come up with 3 options, and we're going to rate them for 3 things. We're going to rate them for value for money in terms of their cost. We're going to rate them for ease of application, how easy they are to apply to the paddles, and then finally we're going to rate them on their performance, their hydrophobic or water repelling performance, by doing the same test as we did last time, where I dunk my paddles into the trough of water I've got and then hold the paddle over a weighing scale with a collector ball which collects any water that drips off. The idea being that if the paddles are hydrophobic, most of the water will have fallen off as soon as the paddle came out of the water, and it won't drip off into the bowl. So first of all, I'm going to do a control, because I am actually changing the paddle I'm using. Rather than using my expensive Enigma Code carbon paddle, I'm going to use my plastic paddle that came with my Sandbanks style optimal kayak, which I haven't used for a while. I'm not saying I'll never use it again, because it is a 4-piece, so it's quite handy for transporting around if I need to have a small bag, but I don't use it very often, so I don't mind if it gets damaged, if like the wax that if the wax doesn't come off or something like that. Because of that, I want to do another control in case the plastic paddles are better or worse at repelling water without anything on than the carbon paddles, and that way we've got a link back to the original test. By the way, if you want to go watch the original test, I'll put a link in the top corner. Obviously, again, reiterate that those options, certainly the surf wax and the candle wax, probably not recommended from an environmental point of view. It's weird, I did search for environmentally friendly surf wax, and that one did actually come up on my chat AI, but actually reading a bit more about it, it describes itself as a mineral-based wax, and everything I read in terms of articles on you know, surf magazines and things like that, mineral-based waxes are just a catch-all term for paraffin-based waxes. So I think it's a paraffin-based wax. So what are the 3 waxes we're going to look at today? Well, first of all, we're going to look at natural beeswax. So this is a stick of beeswax that I bought from Amazon. I actually bought a pack of 5. It comes in a stick this size. It's quite a hard wax, so I don't know how easy it's going to be to apply, but it is obviously completely natural. The other wax I got to look at is kind of like the car wax that I looked at last time. So the car wax I looked at last time was a Carnauba based car wax, but obviously it has a lot of other additives in it, which means it's maybe, and the additives themselves might not be great. So this is a pure stick of Carnauba wax, and it's basically used for furniture repair and polishing. It gives a really hard wearing surface to furniture after it's been sort of, I don't know, made, I guess. I'm no carpenter, but this wax is very, very hard
I guess that's why it gives wooden furniture a hard wearing finish, but I'm wondering if I'm going to be even able to apply it to my paddles. Again, I'll put a link in the description for which one I bought, just in case it does work, but I'm not holding out much hope for this one.
And the final wax I've got to look at is a genuinely environmentally friendly surf wax, and the way to tell is to basically look at the ingredients. So obviously we're trying to avoid paraffin-based waxes. This one is essentially made from beeswax and coconut oil and a few other bits and pieces, mainly to make it smell nice. So it's pretty pure. It's the wax that the British Olympic surf team use. I didn't know we had a British Olympic surf team, and it's made in the UK.
Now, the only thing that worries me about this one is I read a couple of things that said that you should apply like a base coat of a different type of wax onto your surfboard. Obviously there's no particular advice about kayak blades, so we'll see. So let's get this opened up and see what it feels like. Other than the stickers, it was just wrapped in a really thin layer of cling film. It was so thin it was almost difficult to tell if I'd got all the cling film off of it. But in terms of how it feels in my hand, it feels pretty similar to the surf waxes that I had before, maybe a little harder, but again, I think it should go on okay.
So let's get on with the test and see how we get on.
So first of all then, I'm going to use some warm water just to wash this plastic paddle down. Be interesting to see if the plastic performs the same way. I am going to do a control again, just in case there is a difference in the paddle material. This one is plastic, obviously, my other one was carbon. So let's get on with it, and then I get the ball and the scales out and get everything else set up. First of all, let's do the control with no wax on to see if there's any difference in these plastic paddles as there was with the carbon paddle. Okay, so I've got my 10-second timer ready, and I'm going to start it as soon as I lift the blade out of the water and then put it over the ball. So let's get the blade in the water and let's go. Oh, I haven't turned the scale on. Okay, so that is the control, and it is on 13 grams, so not quite as much as the control on the carbon blades, but maybe the blades are slightly bigger, maybe they're just slightly stickier with water. So let's get these dried off and get a wax applied. This is how much water came off in that first control test. What I'm going to do in this one that I didn't do last time is completely dry the ball and show you how much water, as well as the weight of the water after each test.
So at some point the microphone on my big camera did actually start working again. I think the problem was I plugged the mic jack into the camera far enough for the camera to think there was a microphone plugged in, but not far enough actually to make the connection. And eventually, I think it's spring loaded, so it did actually pop out far enough that the camera started using its own internal mic again. Some of the parts of the video you'll hear a loud clunking noise. That's the autofocus on the camera. It's really noisy. It's a really noisy autofocus, and the internal microphone picks it up really loudly. If I was using an external microphone, you wouldn't have heard it, which is really frustrating and a real schoolboy error.
Okay, let's start with the beeswax then. See how well it goes on. It is going on, but it's difficult. So let's speed things up a bit. I'll get it done and I'll show you what the paddle looks like when it's fully covered. Okay, that's the beeswax done. Not used very much at all to coat one blade. Don't know how easy you can see that. Let me see if I can focus the camera. It smelled a bit weird putting it on, like almost like burning. This blade has got quite a pronounced channel, I guess, in it. and it was quite difficult to get the wax in there. I guess once you've used it a few times, you'll probably have different shapes on the wax bar, so you can use different shapes to get in it. The flat bits were quite easy, just using the back of the wax. But anyway, let's give it a test and see how we do. Okay, re-zero the scales. Get my timer ready. This one is the beeswax. Let's get it in the water. Right, get ready. Okay, the beeswax was 5 grams, so pretty much about the same as the candle wax and the Carnauba car wax that I tried last time. And there you can see the amount of water in the bowl. There is still some water in there, but it's in theory less than half than there was in the control test. So now I've just got to clean the wax off this blade, get it ready for the next test. I'm not going to film that. You saw what I did last time, just use a bit of hot water and a cloth, try and soften up the wax with hot water and then dry it off. Okay, I think I've got the beeswax off as best I could. Let's see if we can apply some of this Carnauba wax on there. I'm thinking probably not. It's a really hard wax. I mean, this stuff just feels like a stick of plastic. It's that hard. It's kind of not going on. I'm going to give it as good a go as I can, but it's really not. I mean, all it's doing is leaving brittle bits. You can kind of tell where you've been, but I'm not certain whether that's because it's leaving a coat of wax or whether it's just like scraping on the blade. It's really not working very well. I don't think it'll be a fair test because it hasn't really covered it very well, but let's give it a go and then let's see if we can wash it off. Okay, then here we go. Carnauba wax didn't really apply very well. Let's go. Four grams, not bad at all for a fairly bad coating of Carnauba wax. I think, you know, with a bit more effort, I'll probably get it more coated and could maybe get that number down, but it's not something I have time for now. That's how much water was in there after I'd cleaned and dried the bowl off previous test. Okay, last test then is our eco-friendly surf wax. Let's hope this is easier to apply than the Carnauba wax, maybe even easier than the beeswax. It feels softer than the beeswax, so I'm hopeful. But how will it perform in the dip test? That's only one way to find out. Let's get it applied and get this last test done before these rain clouds come over. Yeah, this is applying almost exactly the same as the other surf wax that I tried. It's not going to look pretty. It smells pretty good. I believe one of the things it's got in it is coconut oil, so it smells like coconut. I'm not a big lover of coconut, but I don't mind the smell of it. It's given quite a good coating, hopefully you can see that. But yeah, that's covered it about as well as the other surf wax did. It looks the same in terms of the finish. Doesn't look great, but if they did start doing a black wax, it probably would look fine. Let's give it a test and see how it does. So there's the surf wax applied to the blades. Okay, timer's ready. Dunk the blade in and there you go. It's not even registered again. I definitely saw a couple of drips fall off, and there are some bits in the bowl, a tiny little dribble in the bowl, so probably not even a milliliter. Obviously these scales aren't super sensitive, so there may be a bit more, but definitely the best performing of the waxes. So there we go then, the test is repeated with some eco-friendly options. And I think all of those work to some degree, so whichever of your preferred wax to use, then you're probably going to get some success. If I was going to rate them, let's do 3 ratings. First one is cost, second one is ease of application, and the third one is the performance of the water repellency. Let's start with the beeswax then. Cost wise, I think that's probably the most economical I give it 5 out of 10. I bought what, 5-6 sticks for, I think it was £10, maybe a little bit more, but if you bought it in bulk you could get it for much less, probably around about £1 or £2 a stick. If you just wanted to buy one stick from Amazon, it was about £6, but I'd say for 5 sticks it was like 11 quid. But you could probably buy in bulk and do a lot more saving. Ease of application, I'm going to give it a 3. It went on pretty well. The wax sort of the unused stick was quite difficult to start with because it had sharp edges, but once I'd been using it a little bit, obviously it started to round down a little bit, and then I could get it to go into the nooks and crannies of the paddle, so I'll give it a 3. Performance wise, I'm also going to give it a 3. It did repel quite a lot of water, but maybe not as much as other waxes that we've tried and the other wax in this test. What about the Carnauba wax then? What rating I'm going to give that? I'm going to give that one, in terms of its cost, I'm going to give that a 2. Look, it's not the most expensive thing in the world, but it was I think it was like £10-12 for that, just that one stick. If it wasn't, I'll put the actual cost on the screen, and there'll be links in the description. So it was the most expensive, to the point where I ummed and ahed as whether I was even going to include it in the test, because it was a bit pricey. In terms of application, I'm going to give it a 1. It was quite difficult to apply. It was really difficult to tell whether you were applying it or whether you were just scratching the paddles clean. But surprised though, I didn't think I applied it very well, and it still did well in the water repellency. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 in the water repellency test. Then finally, the Radical eco-friendly surf wax. I'm going to give this one a 3 again for economical. It was £10 for that bar, but then I had to pay postage. I could find it at places like Amazon, but the Amazon prices were about the same as the price from the manufacturer plus postage. So I decided to go with from the manufacturer. In terms of its ease of application, I'm going to give it a 4. It was pretty easy to apply. It's quite soft. Maybe some of the different temperature varieties will be a little bit more difficult, or maybe even easier to apply, but that one was pretty easy. Again, once I've used it a little bit, the sharp corners started coming off it, and I could probably get it into a shape where I could get it into the bits where I couldn't really get it into this time. So I'm sure the more you use it, you'll sort of round it into a shape where you'll be able to use it a bit more effectively. And then for water repellency, I mean, it got 0. I mean, there was obviously a couple of drips in there. It wasn't completely dry, but it's about as good as it's going to get, so I'm going to give it a 5. There you go. There are some eco-friendly options. There is obviously the less eco-friendly option of the other surf wax. Look, you do you, but personally I'm going to choose the economical option. I'm going to use that Radical surf wax in the future. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Leave a comment if you're thinking about using surf wax or any kind of wax in the future, and I'll see you in whatever the next video turns out to be. And to be honest with you, I've not got anything in the can at the moment, so I need to get on with filming some more videos. See you next time.